right, welcome back to Let's Talk About Labor, a podcast that focuses on talking with other farmers about the sources of labor they use in their operations. Our second episode, the name of our second episode is H-2A Worker Housing, Practical Things I Need to Know Before Considering the H-2A Program. And so again, today our invited speakers are George McDonald, owner of Catesa Farms, and we have Bart Gilmer, one of the owners of Falcon Ridge Farm. This podcast is a collaboration between the University of Tennessee and Gap Connections and aims to help connect with farmers in Tennessee and other surrounding states, specifically to hear about their experiences with using various U.S. temporary foreign visa programs to address their labor needs. My name is Margarita Velandia. I'm a professor in the Department of Agricultural and Resource Economics. Jane?
My name is Jane Chadwell. I'm the executive director at Gap Connections, which is a nonprofit based here in Knoxville, Tennessee that has a focus on ag labor.
And I'm Amy Roachkis. I'm the training and resource coordinator with Gap Connections.
In this episode, again, we'll continue talking about the H-2A program, specifically housing. Employers of H-2A workers must provide housing at no cost to workers, specifically H-2A workers. If the employer decides to secure rental accommodations such as apartments, hotels, or motels, the employer is required to pay all housing-related charges directly to the housing's management. Employer provided or secure housing must meet all applicable safety standards, and we're going to talk not in detail, but George and Bart will tell us about their experience with housing inspections and things that they look for. And housing costs, of course, include not only the cost of housing in itself, but repairs, water testing, and utilities if the employer is providing housing on site instead of securing a rental accommodation. In Tennessee, the type of housing provided by employers to H-2A workers varies greatly and depends on probably the number of workers you have and the preferences of the farmer. Again, welcome back, George and Bart. We're going to go ahead and dive into the housing requirements. So tell us a little bit about your housing arrangements for H-2A workers, specifically all the things you need to consider before your H-2A workers get on the farm. For example, the type of housing you're offering, annual repairs, water testing, and house inspections. Let's start with George.
Hey, it's my turn. Okay. The way we handle our housing is we have a building that we use for housing. It's got a few rooms in it, enough square feet per person. You've got to have a minimum of 50 square foot per person in the sleeping area, 50 per person in the living area. That's the bare bones minimum. Talking about utilities, any expense on that house is my expense. Our operation has to pay for that. So if you've got H-2A workers in the house and they tear up the commode and whomever tore it up, you can't say, well, you tore it up, you have to fix it. That's on the farm's bill to get that repaired. All the utilities, everything about that house. When these workers come in, the way it's set up, they have zero expenses except for food and for washing clothes. And what I mean by that, you either provide the washing machine or you have to take them somewhere to get the washing, and you've got to take them somewhere for shopping. Keep in mind in the bathroom, you have to have one toilet per 10 workers, one shower for 10 workers, one vanity for 10 workers, refrigerator, one. And on that 50 square foot in a bedroom, that's an automatic fail if they come in measure and you've got 49 square foot in that bedroom per person. You can, way we gain some extra on there, you can use bunk beds, and that gains some space on that situation also. But I recommend the housing to be close enough to you, but you don't want it right up under your nose. And generally speaking, like I say, these folks have come to work. They get bored. In our operation, we offer them television, but they do not want a cable. All they want is internet. We provide internet for them in their bunkhouse. so that they can all talk back home, do whatever they want to be doing on their phones. And that seems to make them happy. We keep up all the repairs on that house. We keep internally and outside also. Some of these things I'm mentioning not necessarily have to be in the book, but to me, it's the ethical way to treat people.
George, did you have existing housing that you converted to H-2A housing, or did you build housing?
We had some existing housing, but probably before the end of the year, we will start building housing for our workers in the upcoming year because we're needing to expand acreage. That house is maxed out at 10 people. That's all can go in this facility. It's a block building. We got 2 bedrooms in it, which are very large. No problem there, a large living area, but still there's 2 commodes in there. We have the washing machine in there. Another thing too, AWA and our group, the H-2A, recommend not putting in a clothes dryer. They recommend using clothes lines to dry clothes on, but they'll use them more than not. But we ourselves, we do both. We have clothesline and a clothes dryer for them.
How about you, Bart?
So we when we started out, like I said, just had 2 workers, and so we built a small wood frame house for them. Very simple, 3 rooms, got a kitchen and sitting area, sleeping area, and a bathroom. And it has got enough square footage for 3 workers in that building. And like George said, you can't be 1 square foot short. That building is 3 square feet short of being big enough for 4 people, but they're not going to let you squeeze that in. But we've got when we started getting more than 3 workers, we've got a metal building that had some framing already done in it, and we took some existing rooms and made additional sleeping quarters in there, and as well as laundry room is in that same building, and we've got 2 bathrooms. We don't have enough workers to require 2 bathrooms number wise, but we do have 1 female worker, and if you have male and female workers, you are required to have separate bathrooms for those workers. And so we've got a men's and a women's in the facility that we built inside the existing structure, and then 1 restroom for the structure that we built, and everyone shares the same kitchen and laundry room. Let's see. George hit on the utilities, and you're responsible for all that. The water test that Margarita had mentioned, that's something that you have to do once a year. We use a local company here, and cost about $90 to do that test. And way it works with us is we call them, tell them we're ready to pull a test. They will FedEx us a little kit to do it, and allows us to pull our own test, and then we have to drive it in to Jackson to get it tested, and usually takes about 3 or 4 days to get the results back. As I mentioned in the first episode, we get 1 housing inspection. Ours is in January. It'll vary depending on when your workers are going to get here. That inspection's done by the state, and but you are subject to inspection anytime from the Department of Labor. The state inspections that are done annually, they do set up an appointment so you know when they're coming. The Department of Labor doesn't give you that convenience, and they can show up at any time to do an inspection, so you've got to be prepared all the time for that. But it's not, in our experience, it's not something that happens every year. We've been doing it about as long as George, 7 or 8 years, and we've had the Department of Labor visit us twice in those 7 or 8 years. But I'd say that's subject to change depending on administration and any changes in the Department of Labor.
So I just want to make sure we clarify that you have the state inspection every year, before those workers. And then the DOL, it's kind of a spot check that may or may not happen. They can come at any time. But you're saying over your 7 to 8 years, it's been about twice.
Correct.
Yeah, and one thing we haven't mentioned in here, and I failed to mention it earlier on, where we're talking about things to be prepared for or things to do. Remember, you got to have workman's comp insurance on these guys also. So do not forget about that. As a past commissioner ag here in Tennessee told me one time, he said, we didn't do farmers in Tennessee justice to keep this in mind, that farmers are exempt from workman's comp, but they're not exempt from the liability. And do not go off this podcast thinking, well, I've got liability insurance. That does not work. Workman's comp, if someone gets hurt, is what covers them, because we know that from our own experience.
Do the associations provide you any kind of checklist, or do you have a checklist of your housing so you know these are the requirements? How do you learn about those requirements for the housing?
Yes, they do have some checklists and literature that you can anybody can download from their website. Just Google AWMA Lexington, Kentucky, and you could actually find those lists and literature there to download and print out if you wanted to.
So let's switch into, I'm thinking I grew up in a house with two sisters, and my dad thought it was a great idea for the three sisters to sleep in the same room, 3 beds, 3 closets. It was great when we were little. As we grew up, it was not that great. So I'm thinking about housing, right? You have multiple workers sharing bathrooms, sharing facilities. Let's talk about those problems that may arise when you have multiple people living in a house. Maybe problems you have encountered with cleaning rules, housing rules, things that you have established because you have encountered certain problems. So tell us maybe challenges in general that you have encountered, and what strategies you have used to remediate those challenges.
Well, I think before people can know what you expect of them, you've got to tell them what you expect of them. So many times people think, well, it's just going to dump out of my mind over into their mind to know what I expect. The first day our workers come in is we set the expectation of what their housing is going to look like. We set the expectation of the cleanliness, what it's going to look like inside and outside of the house. Because if you get an audit and they come by and there's lots of things not right in the house, it's not their liability or their fines or them going to pay the fines. It's going to be me paying the fine. And so that's the reason we set that. As far as those squabbles go, I've got a friend who's got the 50, there's 25 bunk beds in one large room. Now you can't go in and fight everybody, not fight literally, but handle every argument in there, because these are grown adults. They've got to work some things out between themselves. I think that you've got, though, to set the expectations for the workers. Don't expect it to be, however, if you've never communicated that with them, of what you expect from them. Just like we expect our workers, if we're picking produce, to be here at 5:30. How do they know to be here at 5:30? Because that's when we ask them to be here, is at 5:30 each morning. In their house, I expect the trash to be carried off every day, because a simple thing to do, but it helps on the cleanliness of the house and helps maintaining it and keeps a better morale among everyone in there of keeping things clean. The way our guys handle it, one day's one of them's job to clean the bathroom. They rotate around. That's the way they handle the cleaning. The buying groceries, they split it up between themselves. So there's a lot of different ways to do this, and no one way is wrong and no one way is right.
Excellent, George. How about you, Bart?
Let's see. As far as getting along and working together, the years that we've been doing it, we had just one small issue one year. I think we had 3 workers that year, and 2 of them kind of ganged up on one of them and was giving him a hard time because he was snoring, and so they couldn't sleep. And so we come out one morning, and Herman is sleeping somewhere where he does not normally sleep, and asked him what was going on, and they kicked him out because he said he wouldn't quit snoring. And but what we've done is, over the years, we've just kind of fine tuned. I've never sent anybody home during the middle of the season, but there have been several workers that we did not request to come back. And the 2 workers in that situation were, I thought, the inferior workers as far as output and what they give us. And so the next year, Herman got to come back, and I got him to actually recommend somebody else, and we're able to get them here. And so we hadn't had any trouble since then. And like George said, they're good about rotating who's cooking that night, who's cleaning the bathrooms, all that kind of thing. As far as cleanliness of the housing, we always get it cleaned up and ready for that inspection in January. And so everything's like it needs to be. And when they get here, and they're signing some paperwork that they need to do once they arrive on the farm, they've got a set of rules in there, and it's got work rules as far and as well as housing rules. And so we try to hold them to that. And then once everybody leaves at the end of the season, we go in there, and the only thing they're bad about in the housing is leaving perishable stuff there that could attract bugs or rodents or something like that over the winter time. And so we'll go in there and clean out all the perishable goods. I'll leave the canned goods, anything like that, and give it a good cleaning. And but while they're here, they're responsible for maintaining it. But like George said, if we get inspected, it's our responsibility, and we just delegate that responsibility to them as far as keeping it clean. And that's all I can think of.
So George and Bart, I have a question. So do you provide your workers like a lockbox, a locker, something for them to keep their personal items in, as well as their personal documents in housing?
They do. That is one of the housing requirements, is that they do have to have a personal storage area. And what I did in the little house that we built was just built little wooden lockers, kind of a built-in shelf kind of thing, where they've got some shelves, some hanging rods, and have to provide them with a laundry basket. I've got a place to stick the laundry basket in there. And but they do store their own personal documents. There's actually a form we get in our packet where they can sign over and let us keep those documents in a safe or something like that if they felt there was the need. And so you can do that, but we've always let them hang on to it, because when we take them to the bank every week to cash their checks, they've actually got to use that passport to cash that check each week. And so it's just easier on us if they keep up with them.
Great. George?
I know some of the things that we've done at Gap Connections. We work with thousands of growers across the Southeast that work with H-2A workers. And I think you guys have hit the nail on the head about laying out the expectations up front. And one of the things we also encourage is, talk about the smoke detectors, the fire extinguishers. Where's the first aid kit in the housing? Sometimes when a smoke detector, the battery starts beeping, they'll go and they'll take the battery out. Maybe they don't tell you you have a housing inspection, and you get docked for that. But so laying those things out up front, I think, is huge. And then we also have some posters that are in English and Spanish that say, here's where the trash needs to go. These are the days the trash is going to be picked up. So things like that, laying that out up front, I think, is very helpful.
Right. And then George, you want to comment on Amy's question about the
So what was your
lockers?
question? I got tied up with Jane that time. Sorry.
So, offering them storage space
Okay,
or
that's it. Like Bart,
drawers, closets, someplace to keep their personal items, their personal documents.
well, according to the housing standards, you cannot go buy a bed that will meet H-2A housing requirements because you can't get them higher enough off the floor. Literally, we have to modify beds to do that. And there are places to store things. They're made so they can put totes under their bed. We have rolling hanging racks that we have there in that room, and that's what they utilize most of the time is those totes under the bed and that rolling rack. And as far as keeping personal items, like Bart will offer to keep it here, but they usually always keep it with them. They prefer to keep it stashed under the mattress or wherever they do it. But our bank's a little different than they are down your way, I guess, because our bank tellers knows our guys and they roll in and get what they need and come back out. Because one thing we failed to mention about these folks, of the 10 folks that we have working for us on H-2A program, 6 of them have been with us since the beginning. One of them's birthday was yesterday. We're on Facebook, on Messenger, back and forward quite often. My mother, 83-year-old, she works in the office. She just gets so excited when some of them come back because they'll bring her stuff back home when they come. They're great to see one another, happy to see one another. They'll text message us on Facebook about different things, showing us pictures what they've got going on. We'll show them pictures what's going on here. I mean, it's really a reunion just about when they come back each year.
All right.
You've
Where about?
obviously- Oh, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Amy.
I was gonna
Where
say,
about?
obviously, both Bart and George have created a family culture on their farms with their H-2A workers, and housing is a big part of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I see some housing. I'm like, phew, don't do that. Don't do that. But that's not my business.
All right, guys. So we're almost at the end of our second episode of Let's Talk About Labor. Thank you, George. Thank you, Bart, for taking the time to talk to us. And so in our next episode, we're going to talk about transportation, specifically inbound and outbound transportation of H-2A workers. Thank you, guys. See you in the next episode.
Thank you.